to get us started, I'd like to have those who can stand with me to do the Pledge of Allegiance here with the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, as a reminder for those who are here and might not be aware, as a part of our meeting, we have our meeting audio and video also being streamed live on the COG's website. And I want to take a minute here first to sincerely thank all of the regional public safety agencies and the emergency responders for joining us here today. Hopefully all of the board members had the opportunity to connect with their respective agencies before the meeting, and I'll say the food was very nice. I'm also honored that we get the opportunity to recognize each of you during our meeting today and to discuss the regional response to the mid-air collision outside of DCA. Now, before I start, I think it would be appropriate for us to take a moment of silence to remember the 67 victims who lost their lives on January 29th. Thank you. Again, hopefully you enjoyed the lunch before you came into the meeting today. The food was catered by the Capitol Lounge Cafe, which is located just on the first level of this building, and hope that you who come to this COG facility will have the opportunity to visit the cafe both before and after our COG meetings. Thank you. I enjoyed everything, and I did eat everything. So our first agenda item here, number 3, is our executive director's report. So moving into that, I would like to welcome our executive director, Clark Mercer, to give his report. Mr. Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. And in recognition of all of our guests today, my report is written this month. It's in your packets. Just flag a couple things. I'd like to echo the thank yous, particularly to our staff at COG for pulling this event together today. The public safety team played a large hand in this. This is the second day in a row that they've had an event in this space. Yesterday, the Emergency Preparedness Committee ran a region-wide tabletop, an active shooter drill here in this room. So they've had a very busy week, and I want to thank them. In your packet includes our year-end report and our member benefits document, as well as a budget update. And that's twofold. One is COG's finances, how they're doing year to date. And 2 is looking at actions at the federal level and how they impact COG's budget moving forward. Preview, most of our funding is formula-based, and we have less reliance on discretionary grants, so less exposure at this time, but the memo goes into some detail. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mercer. Our next item is our amendments to our agenda here today. Just wanted to determine, are there any amendments to today's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 5, approval of the minutes from the January 15th, 2025 meeting. Is there a thank you.
Move. Second.
Perfect. We have a motion to second. Are there any abstentions or nay votes? Abstentions? Nays? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we have our consent agenda item. There are 2 resolutions that are on our agenda today regarding 2 grant-related projects, invasive species management in Fairfax County, and second, the Continuous Airport Systems Planning Program. It is included on page 21 of your board package for additional information. So with that, I move approval of the consent item. Is there? Thank you, Chair Randall, for the second.
Second.
Okay, thank you as well. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Regarding agenda item number 7, which is the probably the most important one here today, so I'm really excited about this, the reflections on and recognition of the regional response to the January 29th mid-air collision. I am pleased that we have so many of our regional responders here today to acknowledge and honor their incredible work in response to such a tragic incident. First, we will hear from COG and a handful of responding agencies on the regional response effort, our mutual aid agreement, and how the agencies work together. We'll hear from 5 of the responding agencies today. However, there are almost 90 different regional entities that responded to the collision on January 29th. Many are here in the room. This is an incredible example of regional collaboration. After we hear from our speakers, we will begin to recognize the agencies and the individuals here with us today through a resolution, and we'll ask each group to come forward to be recognized. And I'd like to first start off by introducing our speakers and to ask them to come up to the dais. So first, we have Scott Boggs, who is the COG Homeland Security and Public Safety Managing Director. He will be accompanied by, and I'll list them all, John A. Donnelly Sr. with the District of Columbia's Fire and Emergency Management Department, Pamela A. Smith, Metropolitan Police Department Chief of Police, Mark Schwartz, the Arlington County Manager, James E. McClellan Sr., who is the Prince George's County Deputy Fire Chief, and then Rick Molinado, who is the Montgomery County Chief Administrative Officer. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Boggs for him to get us started.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in this brief presentation, I'll speak about the importance of regionalism in the National Capital Region and how collaboration is critical in the effective emergency preparedness and response. I'll focus on the key strategies, agreements, and tools that enable the region to work seamlessly across borders, highlighting the role of mutual aid during disasters such as the January 29th Potomac mid-air collision. In a regional system comprised of sovereign jurisdictions, there's no single point of accountability and for events with regional impacts. Working together across jurisdictional lines and disciplinary silos to coordinate, share information, and allocate resources is the backbone of regionalism. The Homeland Security and Public Safety community of the NCR works to maintain this collective regional perspective in preparedness, response, and recovery. It's important to mention that the region learns and grows from every regional disaster and response. The success of the response on January the 29th can be directly attributed to lessons learned by the Homeland Security and Public Safety stakeholders in this room as far back as from 1982 in the Air Florida crash. Following the 1982 crash, a COG task force was comprised of public safety personnel, made a series of recommendations to strengthen the region's disaster response. Some recommendations included strengthening and improving mutual aid, training and personnel development, notification and alert procedures, command and control arrangements, communications and response by EMS units and hospitals, and COG and its members work on emergency preparedness and response has supported the response to emergencies such as 9/11, the January 6th, and riot at the Capitol. The work to implement the first recommendation noted previously, strengthening mutual aid, is the foundation that enables regional collaboration daily and was critical for the region's successful response. At the highest level, the NCR Mutual Aid Agreement governs mutual aid response in the region. This agreement enables the resource sharing across jurisdictional boundaries in preparation for mitigation, management, response, and/or recovery from an emergency. Overall, it increases the ability to preserve safety and the welfare of the entire NCR. The mutual aid agreement can be activated in 3 different scenarios: an actual emergency, where resources are needed immediately; a public service or planned event, such as the presidential inauguration, or any training and exercise. Additional features of the mutual aid agreement is that it authorizes resource sharing across local and state boundaries without the need for an emergency management assistant compact request. In other words, we can cross state lines, and other places in the nation, they would have to actually call the emergency management agency of that state to request that resource. We don't have to do that. It's not a mandate to share resources. This is a coalition of the willing, but as you can see, that's a very tight coalition. It is authorized by the Intelligence Reform and Terrorism Prevention Act of 2004, which also defines the NCR, which includes COG members in bordering counties such as Fauquier and Howard counties. While the mutual aid agreement is the overarching agreement among jurisdictions and enables resource sharing, it's COG's mutual aid operations plans that put this into action. These plans outline the detail of how the discipline will request, share resources, and support an event. Examples include the police, fire and rescue, emergency management, transportation, correction, and debris removal mutual aid operations plans, or MAOPs. And we have more under development today. COG and the region have established multiple mechanisms to aid in communications coordination, the information sharing for preparedness and response within the region. This slide outlines two of those mechanisms which are used on a daily basis by first responders and other stakeholders, and were prominent during the January 29th response. First, the Regional Incident Communication and Coordination System and the National Capital Region Watch Desk. This system was used for rapid communications to public safety personnel, as well as government officials during the major incidents via email, text, voice, and even setting up conference calls. RICS is operated 24/7 by the NCR Watch Desk. Additionally, COG staff convenes short notice teleconferences among public safety personnel and executives in coordination for regional preparedness and response to share information. All of these tools, systems, and agreements were leveraged in the response of January the 29th. And in the days that followed, with over 400 first responders on the scene responding from more than 90 agencies. Shortly after the event, COG staff touched base with committee leadership and members to ascertain if there were any unmet needs, and as a result held 4 emergency management coordination calls. Over a dozen RICS notifications were distributed to hundreds of recipients via the NCR Watch Desk. The public information messaging was amplified by the Public Information Officers Committee. And in addition to RICS, many regional programs and resources were leveraged, such as CAD to CAD, NCR GDX, MView, Web EOC, RITIS, the NCR Mass Care Cache, radio interoperability resources, and the mass casualty resources. I want to also highlight the importance of providing mental health and resources to our first responders. COG is working to identify regional opportunities to provide mental health support and other resources to first responders who were involved in the January 29th recovery, as well as for the future. I provided my overview of the structures and some of the regional systems in place that support preparedness and response, and now I'm going to turn it over to Chief Donnelly, who will discuss the response on January 29th.
So I'm Chief Donnelly from DC Fire and EMS. I've asked Chief Bonnet from the airport to stand with me because this shows that how big of a response this was, and that it was an incident that affected all of us. What I want to say in addition, so Scott went through a pretty technical description of all the things we've done and how we got here. But what I can tell you from the fire chief's perspective is that if we didn't do this every day, if we weren't preparing for this, our response would have looked different. And that's really important. The second part of that is that this never stopped being a local event. And you have to remember that. There were times during this event that federal agencies thought they were in charge of certain parts. It's not meant to be funny, but they weren't. Ultimately, right? local government came together to take care of the families of the injured or the deceased, to appropriately deal with the bodies, to coordinate the message, to help the airport get reopened, to, Metro, the night of the event, stayed open late to get people from Dulles in, right? All of our region responded. So up here representing the fire chiefs, I want to say thank you for your support for us. This is what good government looks like. This is why we plan, we exercise, and we continue to ask for money for training, to sign off on our mutual aid agreements and all of those things. But some of the things we did worked outside of the mutual aid agreement, and that's really important. You'll see Baltimore County Fire or Baltimore City Fire here, right? Plus other people outside of our mutual aid agreement that came to help. Without slowing down, without waiting to figure out if it was legal or not, right? This is important because we needed all the help we could get. The last piece I'd like to leave everybody with is that these incidents take a toll on all of the responders. I am proud to say that all of our region's investment in peer support and mental health is paying off. The International Association of Firefighters Crisis Response Team that came out and made themselves available to all of the responders is a big deal. So we had a lot of help across the board from our labor unions and our workforce for participating. So on behalf of all the fire chiefs, in behalf of all the responders, really, thank you for supporting us. And hopefully we can continue all of that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Our next speaker will be Pamela A. Smith, Metropolitan Police Department Chief of Police.
Thank you, Mr. Lusk, and certainly thank you, my co-partner in this work as a first responder here in the District of Columbia, Chief John Donnelly. Mr. Lusk and the team, thank you so much for having us here today and for this recognition. The Metropolitan Washington Council of Government is a vital partner of the Metropolitan Police Department and the District of Columbia as a whole. Organizations such as COG play a critical role in bringing jurisdictions together during times of calm so that when crises arise, we are already aligned, allowing us to respond swiftly, effectively, and as one unified region. The partnerships built by COG are vital to the public safety of our region, and that collaboration was on full display from the minute the tragedy occurred over the Potomac River on January 29th. I want to start off by extending my deepest condolences to all of those families affected by this tragedy. Our thoughts are with the victims, the families, their loved ones, and all of our communities currently navigating this unimaginable loss of life. All of us at the MPD stand with those who have been impacted. From the moment we received the alert from the tower at Reagan, MPD officers alongside our partners from DC Fire and EMS, regional law enforcement, federal agencies, and emergency response teams sprang into action. Our Harbor Patrol, air support, and numerous specialized teams worked tirelessly to conduct search and recovery operations under some of the most challenging conditions imaginable. The response to this devastating incident was nothing short of what I would consider extraordinary. The strength of our partnerships across the regions was on full display, demonstrating the critical role of mutual aid and coordinated emergency response. First responders quickly recognized the scale of this incident, and our incident commanders immediately activated mutual aid requests to ensure every available resource was deployed to assist in the search and recovery efforts. I want to take a moment to specifically acknowledge the efforts of our Harbor Patrol unit, who worked around the clock to ensure the dignified return of remains to the victim's family, allowing them to find some measure of closure in the wake of this tragedy. Our dive teams conducted dozens of dives under extremely difficult conditions, strong currents, freezing temperatures, and an ever-evolving debris field. Their work was nothing short of heroic, and we owe them and every first responder who responded to this incident an extraordinary debt of gratitude. But I also want to recognize something else, the toll that this has taken on our first responders. Our officers have faced many challenging moments in their career, but no moment or amount of training could prepare us for what we encountered that night and the weeks that followed. In speaking with some of our members who were on the front lines, I have made sure they have the time and resources to process what they experienced, and just as more importantly to me, time to spend with their loved ones. Our members and first responders don't do this job for public credit. They don't ask for recognition, and many of them shy away from it. But I want to take this moment to acknowledge their sacrifice, their professionalism, and their commitment to duty. What they have done during this tragedy and what all of our partner agencies have done deserves to be honored. To our partners, those of you who called me pretty much all night, asking how could you and what could I do to respond and what services and resources do you need? And I told them immediately, send me everything you have. To our partners who played a role in this response, thank you. This was an incredible, difficult moment for our city and for our region, but the selflessness, the professionalism, and resilience you displayed made all the difference. This response demonstrated the very best of public service, and I am thankful and grateful to stand along beside each and every one of you each day. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Our next speaker will be Mark Schultz. He is the Arlington County Manager.
Thank you, Chair Lusk, and I want to thank Chief Smith and Chief Donnelly. It's not lost on me the somewhat unenviable task I have of being on the agenda with you and your colleagues, because I fully recognize that while you and many of your crews and the brave people who work in Arlington County and all the surrounding jurisdictions were on site during the response, I was coordinating updates from my couch at home. So I want to thank the COG Board of Directors for keeping this item on the agenda today. So in an era of short attention span news coverage, I think it can at times feel like the public has just plain old moved on. And I know for a fact the many people who responded on the night of January 29th, many of whom are here, have not been able to move on. And I'll talk about that in a bit. Virginia answered the call that night. The response, which included Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, and Loudoun, was immediate. There was no hesitation from the region to assist DC Fire and EMS, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. And as Scott Boggs talked about earlier, the response in reality began years ago. The level of collaboration and cooperation doesn't happen by accident. It happened because of an accident of the Air Florida tragedy in 1982. So we as a region have a unique ability to respond as one. It's demonstrated in our level of coordination. It just doesn't normally occur in other parts of the country. Please do not lose sight of that. We have the blessing of multiple jurisdictions. We also have the blessing of the federal government to work with. And it wasn't always that way. So, and I know, at least in Arlington and the other, my regional partners, trainings that happen every day and investments that have been made, whether through the Northern Virginia Emergency Response System or our sister jurisdictions, every day there is conversation and talk about the incident management team and how that works. And it just doesn't happen because it's in written agreements. It happens every day through every level of the region, from chiefs to recruits to county administrators who work together and speak with one voice. So the best example that I experience is the collaboration that we have on COG's Homeland Security Executive Committee, which is led by top professionals and experts who meet when there is not a crisis, so that when a crisis happens, we can work together. This tragedy reaffirms the need for continuing and evolving regional support. And my remarks today actually were a collaborative effort with my colleagues, Brian Hill, Tim Hemstreet, Jim Parajon, Kevin Donahue, and I know you're going to hear later from Rich Madaleno. I could spend time talking about all the individuals who responded, but I did, before we look too far ahead, want to focus on something you've heard about, which is the immediate and what we need to do now. Support for those who respond is crucial. In Arlington County, I am proud of the support. We have our own separate public safety wellness unit. And I hope that many of you, whether first responders or elected officials, make note that a crisis response goes on for months and years after the event. Sharing mental and behavioral health resources for our first responders is not a choice, it's a necessity, and it's of paramount importance. And so, as much as we've talked about regional collaboration, the challenge for us going forward is to make sure that our responders remain resilient and healthy. Long after the debris is removed, long after the smell of jet fuel has evaporated, each of us is left with a profound imprint that highlights our ability to persevere, but also a reminder of our frailty and the need to support each other. I'm honored to be here and recognize the work of everybody on January 29th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Our next speaker is James E. McClellan, Sr., Prince George's County Deputy Fire Chief.
Good afternoon. My name is John Bender. I'm an Assistant Fire Chief with the Prince George's County Fire Department, filling in for Deputy Chief McClellan, who is unable to be here today. First off, let me start by saying how honored I am to be standing here among so many of our public safety partners from around the region and the states. So I was asked to give a perspective briefly on the mutual aid response as answering the call for service that night on January 29th. I was a shift commander working in Prince George's County. Fire EMS received a call that evening from our public safety communications asking for a mutual aid response for one boat to respond to the Potomac River to assist the District of Columbia Fire Department. At that time, that was our initial call. From that point on, we started gathering a lot of information that had come in fairly rapidly. We were in constant communication, switched over to the District of Columbia's Marine Incident Channel, started to gather information with what resources to send, what boats and personnel we were going to put down on the river. We had immediately decided to send our airboat 847 as the first out Marine unit, just knowing because we had worked seamlessly with them previously for the inauguration deployment on the Potomac River with the DC Fire, a number of our regional partners, and the U.S. Coast Guard, kind of knowing that there was ice on the river and there was some unique features that airboat has that we were able to assist with. We also dispatched our Battalion Fire Chief 5, who oversees our marine operations from the southern end of the county. So listening and operating, listening to radio communications on that channel, we were able to determine our launching point from there. Simultaneously, our Prince George's County Police Department had deployed their Marine unit. They have a number of boats and also their aviation assets to assist with the search. So once our units arrived down there, we were able to work. I arrived at JBAB and worked seamlessly with the Unified Command Post was welcome into that and immediately working side by side with all the chief officers, both with MPD and DC Fire. Moving forward, we also did a callback, brought a number of resources back in for our Marine station or our Marine Fire Station, and then brought some additional command staff back in. Not sure how the incident was going to play out, if we were going to need to provide assistance, any further requests that might come in for the operations going on either in the District of Columbia or neighboring jurisdictions, that as they were committing resources to the scene just to answer the other calls for service that were still going on in the area. So our command staff came back in, backfilled the agency, as well as we transferred one of our rescue squads from Berwyn Heights Fire Department down to the district until they can get units back in service. So still today, we are working with our folks that are assigned to those stations to provide the mental health component of that, which we've heard from several of the agencies, working with the International Association of Firefighters, our employee assistance program, as well as the county police is working with their psychological services division to just do a general debrief of responders and continue to help them as they go through the events from that night. But again, I thank you for the honor of being here and talking to you and standing alongside of all of our responders. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rich Maldoleno. He's with Montgomery County Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you very much, Chair Lusk. Again, my name is Rich Metalino, and I have the honor to be the Chief Administrative Officer of the Montgomery County government. We have spent much time today talking about the immediate aftermath of the crash and the response to the river. I'm here to talk a little bit about what maybe people didn't realize and didn't see, and that was exactly in the plan. The Family Assistance Center that was opened in Bethesda for the region for the families of the victims to stay over the following days. While we did play a small role in the Family Assistance Center, we did what clearly any one of us would have done to assist people who have experienced a tremendous loss. The NTSB and American Airlines did the majority of the direct support, which meant that our role was simply to provide any other resource with speed and compassion that was requested. This was often to ensure that distance from the public and external entities was maintained out of respect for the families. We spent most of our time making sure the press and others kept a distance from the families as they grieved and they struggled to understand what had happened. Our efforts were driven by a deep sense of duty and empathy. We recognized the immense grief and confusion that the families were experiencing, and thus our priority was to offer a protective environment where they could process their emotions privately. Our team was on standby at all hours, ready to respond to any emerging needs, whether it be logistical support, counseling services, translations, or simply a quiet space for reflection. We worked in close coordination with other agencies to streamline our efforts, ensuring that the families received seamless and uninterrupted support. This included responses from our fire department, our police department, our community engagement staff, our health and human services, and our emergency management and homeland security team. Like with the entire regional response, it was a collective effort, guided by a shared commitment to uphold the dignity and welfare of those affected by the tragedy. On behalf of County Executive Mark Elrich, Council President Kate Stewart, and all 10,000 people who work for the Montgomery County government, I wanted to express our appreciation for all of the first responders who were there that night and the hours and the days and the weeks that followed. It's hard to say we're proud in a tragedy, but certainly we were proud of everyone from the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the state of Maryland who responded to help make sure this response went smoothly and the families were embraced and provided care. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you as well.
There's one element of this that we have not mentioned during the event today, and it's the role of the medical examiner. Dr. Diaz and his team from OCME, the Virginia medical examiner, and the military folks, Dr. Diaz, what they did was nothing short of remarkable. And without them, families would have suffered. So thank you.
Thank you. So let me thank all of you who are here and able to share your thoughts and words on the very heroic work that was done by your agencies and by individuals on your respective teams. On behalf of the board of directors here at COG, we truly appreciate all that you do to make this region and keep this region safe. On a sort of personal note, as I'm looking around this room, I've been on the board now for, this is my 6th year. This is the personification, this is the epitomization of what we have in terms of regionalism. I'm so proud as I look around the room and to see all the different agencies and departments and seeing all the different individuals that are here and acknowledging that the work that COG does makes a difference in this region. Yes, this is a tragedy, and yes, we don't want to celebrate that, but we want to celebrate is that we are bound together as one. And one of the things that I find somewhat difficult at times is I'm from Fairfax County, and I know that Montgomery County sometimes sees us as competitors on economic development and other issues. But I want to be clear in saying there's no competition when it comes down to preserving the life and the safety of the residents in any place in this region. So I just want to reiterate my pride. My pride for COG here today. So I think Vice Chair Ruben Collins is here as well on video. I just wanted to give him oh, not?
He's not able to join.
Okay, so let me maybe as another point of privilege, make a point here. Chair Jefferson just indicated to me that there was an omission in one of the statements about Prince William County. So I want to make sure I give you just a second to include any thoughts you wanted to around that, please.
Thank you so very much. It is a pleasure. It is really a pleasure to have all of our first responders here. It is such a testament to regionalism, but I did want to highlight Prince William County for the work that you have done. For all of you, the last speaker mentioned something about duty and empathy. You have displayed both. You have come and risen to the occasion at a time that is so difficult, and none of your training will ever prepare you truly for a moment like this in the aftermath. But the empathy shown to the families, those who lost loved ones, that is really hard to do as you too are struggling to cope in a situation like this. I applaud each of you. I thank each of you. Thank you, Chairman Luss, for giving me a chance to highlight Prince William County. But each of you who is here today and those who are unable to make it, my heartfelt gratitude goes towards you. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to have the board consider the resolution that we have in the package. But following that resolution, I just want to let everyone here know I will be calling up each agency to come forward and be recognized. I will call agencies by jurisdiction so you can start to mosey up as I call your names. So I would like to move resolution R8-2025, recognizing the incredible regional work in response to the January 29th mid-air collision. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have multiple seconds. I'm going to give this one to Chair Randall. Let me call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Those that are opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Now, what I'd like to do for logistics is on the screen, you're going to see rotating slides of the complete list of the nearly 90 agencies that responded in aid on January 29th. I will call up your agencies that are here in attendance today. As you were called, again, if you will have your team members come up, we're going to quickly recognize and give you a small token of our appreciation, and then everyone at the end will take a group photo. So I'm going to come up right now and just bear with me while I make the transition.
And Chair, a quick note, this is a good problem to have. We have our first run of COG challenge coins, and we wanted to make sure they look good. They look great, and I think we probably don't have enough. So when we run out, we've already put a second order in, and we'll be getting them to your respective agency. So thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started if you can hear me okay. First, I want to note that we got from the congressional record a motion that was done by Senator Warner. It's basically honoring the memory of the victims of the tragic midair collision between American Airlines Flight 5342 and United States Army Aviation Brigade Priority Air Transport 25 on January 29th, 2025. So I just want to enter this into the record here for COG. So as we start with the jurisdictions, I would like to ask all of the responders from agencies in the District of Columbia to please stand. All responders, District of Columbia. So can we give them a round of applause? Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to call, and each of you can start to come up behind me here, DC Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, DC Fire and EMS, Metropolitan Police Department, DC Office of the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, DC Office of Disability Rights, DC Department of Human Services, DC Department of Health, DC Office of Unified Communications, DC National Guard, DC Transportation Department, and DC Office of the Chief Medical Officer. So each of you will be getting a challenge coin. So once we all get you your coins, I'm going to start to call the next jurisdiction. So just make sure everyone gets their coin first, please. Okay. We're all set. Okay, next jurisdiction are the responders from agencies in Virginia, please. Don't leave, don't leave. Everyone stay. I'm so sorry, guys. I know this is probably hard. I know you want to get out, but just hold on one second. We're going to get a group photo with everybody, okay? So let's call up now the agencies in Virginia. If you can please stand if you're from an agency in Virginia, please. Everyone stand. Give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. I will call the first Arlington County Fire and Rescue, Arlington County Police Department, Arlington County Public Safety Communications and Emergency Management, Alexandria Police Department, Alexandria Fire Department, Alexandria Office of Emergency Management, Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department, City of Fairfax Fire Department, Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, Loudoun County Fire Department, Virginia State Police, Virginia Department of Emergency Management, Prince William Fire and Rescue, Harrisonburg Police Department, Newmarket Police Department, Northern Virginia Emergency Response System, National Capital Region Incident Management Team, okay, those are all from Virginia, please. Can give them a hand. Okay, don't worry. I got them. Okay, next are the responders from agencies in Maryland. Could they please stand? First, Prince George's Fire and Rescue, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue, Montgomery County Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services, Frederick County Fire Department, Baltimore County Police Department, Baltimore City Police Department, Baltimore City Fire Department, Anne Arundel County Fire Department, Maryland State Police, Maryland Department of natural resources. Let's give them all a hand for Maryland. Now I'd like the responders from the federal government to please stand. All responders from the federal government, please stand. And let's congratulate them with a quick applause. Thank you. First, United States Coast Guard, United States Capitol Police, Joint Task Force, National Capital Region, U.S. Custom and Border Protection, Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, United States Park Police, United States Secret Service, Metro Transit Police, Federal Emergency Management Agency, National Transportation Safety Board, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Mutts with a mission. I think I saw them earlier. Shield Complacency, American Airlines, American Medical Response, and the American Red Cross. Again, thank all of you for joining us today, and give a hand to those that are still coming up. What I'd like to do is, can we grab a couple of get some of the board members up if they want to get in the picture as well? So board members who want to join the photo, I know this is going to be hard. Some of you, I think, are in the back, and I'm going to admit, I can't see you. Emmett, I can see you, but there are others I cannot. But if you want,
So
okay.
you two shoot off and circle if anyone can file in anymore.
If anyone wants to come to the front, they can fill in the front. Just want to make sure we give at least the opportunity for it. Okay, thank you.
All right, big smiles on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we'll talk then.
Yeah, no, yeah, we'll follow everyone's RSVP here. Okay, good.
So this will work out really well. Later.
Alex, how are you?
So, much with additional RCP, they didn't get their points, and then American Airlines, we just need to contact this person, ask how many they need. And I will lose this if I take this.
Thank you. We're gonna, Preston's marking people as they leave, and then we're also just gonna email everyone that's here and saying, tell us if you're doing a lot of this topic.
There are hot items on off the shelf. Felt like I was at like a ball game, the first under gas can, you know, Adams. Cool. All right, great work. Yeah.
I know we're not going
Okay, okay.
All right. We on? Members, if you can return to your seats, we'll get started in a minute. Hello? It's not. Okay, everyone. Thing that actually works. So we're about to restart the meeting here in just a couple of minutes. We'll get the photographs here, but I need the members of the board of directors to start getting back to their seats. I said after the picture, after the picture. I did say that. I did say that. I'm a dog lover, so don't worry. It's adorable.
Oh, they're so well behaved.
They're awesome.
No, I'm not. You should get one. Really try it.
I also wanted to make a quick note that there is food in the back area. So for members here on the board of directors, if you'd like to grab something, if you didn't get it earlier, also we have some desserts back there too. So feel free. Boatload. Oh, I heard that. So our next topic is changes to the federal workforce and impacts to the region. So we're going to have an opportunity to discuss the current events in the federal government with recent changes to federal workforce and how that affects the Metropolitan Washington region and all of our individual jurisdiction. COG has put together information on the number of federal workers living and working in each of our jurisdictions. And now we will hear from our COG Executive Director, Clark Mercer, on this data and a new website with additional resources. So with that, I'll turn it over to Clark Mercer.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And this is, everyone's having this discussion in your respective localities and states. And this is just to continue and to prompt a discussion here at the board today. We're going to talk about a number of things that we've been doing here at COG just to get the facts out to the DMV and to Maryland and Virginia, just about the number of federal workers who are affected by the actions from the administration, and to level set. So let's go through a couple slides to get some background and then share what it is that we're unveiling to the public today. So this goes back to the first Bush administration, just to show that the level of federal workers in this region has remained relatively stable for several decades. It's fluctuated by 10 or 15,000, but that's about it. I don't have to tell the folks in this room that the contractor workforce has absorbed a lot of the additional work that is done at the federal level. But the number of federal workers at the federal level in DMV has remained stable for several decades now. I have been surprised by just the response to level setting, the number of federal employees that live in Maryland, the district, and Virginia. Depends on the question you ask, what answer you get in terms of these numbers. Oftentimes there are numbers cited that describe the number of federal jobs physically headquartered in a respective state. That is a different question to ask than how many federal workers live in a respective state. I don't have to tell folks that commute. We're all, I started out in Virginia today. I'm in DC. There are hundreds of thousands of individuals who have done that, who are physically headquartered in a jurisdiction different from their own. The U.S. Census American Community Survey gives us the best shot of workers, what they do for a living. It's the largest sample size. It has the smallest margin of error. These are the numbers for Maryland, Virginia, and for the district. And you see the responding percentage of the workforce that works for the federal government. So you'll see in DC, there's 63,072 district residents who work a federal job. That is different than the number of federal jobs headquartered in the district. That number is a little under 22% of the workforce of the district is employed by the federal government. In Maryland, you have over 302,000 Marylanders who work a full-time, non-seasonal, civilian, so not uniform military, federal job. That's 13% of the workforce. And in Virginia, the number is above 320,000. It's above 10% of the workforce. So when you total Virginia, DC, and Maryland, you get just under 700,000 individuals who work full-time for the federal government, 11.9%. I mentioned different data sets that folks can pull, and I will give Virginia as an example. There's a Congressional Research Service report that came out last year that says there's 140,000 federal jobs in Virginia. There's an asterisk immediately to that number that says there's 300,000 federal workers. We're not sure where they're headquartered, and there's several agencies that didn't contribute to this report, any of the intelligence agencies. So whether it's CRS or Bureau of Labor Statistics, typically the CIA, Fort Meade, Langley, FBI do not report to those data sets, and that captures a lot of folks that are affected by what's happening at the federal level. So those are the numbers there for statewide, and then as a portion of the COG region. We're going to show the website that we're debuting, and a big shout out to the staff that's pulled this together, but it through the GIS team has some pretty sophisticated maps that lets you drill down to census tract levels. So census tracts approximately 4,000 people is like a perfect census tract is the number. And that there are some of our highest census tracts with the percentage of workers who work a federal job. As you see in the 20s, 30s, 40% of workers in those census tracts that work a federal job. So this number, as you all know, is changing every single day. So this was inaccurate the moment we put this slide together. But there's three types of employees who are being affected: the probationary employees, and it's important to note, and I've done this now a couple times, and the feedback has been interesting depending on the audience. Probationary employees in federal speak is not a bad word. It means you're new to a position and they're trying you out. So in the private sector, probation can carry with it a negative connotation. For the most part, the probationary workers are new workers in the first couple of years, depending on the job, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year probation. If you are promoted into a managerial role, or you switch departments, or you go back to school and get a degree and get a promotion, you can be a seasoned federal employee and be on probation. So there is a subset of this group that is getting caught up in being let go. It is not the majority, it is a small number, but it is important to note. This is dated by 2 weeks, and it was in the press that 220,000 was the estimated number of probationary employees. But you see every day new updates. Today the Department of Education as an example. So these numbers are changing every day. The buyouts, that initial round, there's a second round now going around of buyouts. The estimate was 75,000 individuals took the buyout. And now you will hear from agencies that they are going through a more formal process, which is, the acronym is RIFT, but reduction in force, where you have to go through a formal process to establish there's not a need for a position or an office, and it allows you to let individuals go. It's a lengthier process, and our agencies are all being asked now to develop their RIFs. Unemployment scenarios. So we have been putting out just the facts of the number of federal employees that live in Virginia, Maryland, and DC, and that has been a lot of interest from the press and from members around the dais. There are groups that are projecting what the unemployment rate will look like at varying intervals. The DOGE committee, the only number that they have put out publicly is a goal of 75% reduction. And when I put this up at a hearing recently, it was asked, why did you put up 75%? That's unreasonable. So look, I did not come up with the number. The committee in charge of these cuts has articulated that 75% is the goal, and we have been reminded several times we should take folks at their word. This is what individuals ran on. This is what they intend to do. So certainly I think we should model out what a 75% cut looks like. There are other groups doing a 10%, 20, 50%. And I will note that this is just what the unemployment rate in this region would look like based on federal employees, not on contractors. And also there is a concept which everyone agrees exists. They debate how large a number this is, but called the multiplier rate. And this is, if you have a lot of good paying jobs in your neighborhood, that is what employs the dry cleaners. That's what gets folks serving coffee. That's what gets personal trainers at the gym. There is some number. It is anywhere from 0.4 to 3 to 4 per good paying job in community. So this does not encapsulate contractors that we've all know are affected immediately, and this multiplier effect. And I will note that 9.6% that comes from the Urban Institute, that is higher than the unemployment rate at the height of COVID. The Weldon Cooper Center out of UVA modeled the numbers for Virginia and modeled just a 10% reduction in the federal workforce as opposed to 75, and their numbers would suggest recession for the Commonwealth, that we would lose more positions than the Weldon Cooper Center had anticipated that we would gain. So bracing for budgetary impacts. COVID has come up often. This past week was the 5-year anniversary of the first death at Fort Belvoir. And it's interesting, the parallels, because there were legislators wrapping up their budget sessions and leaving town right when this happened. And the question kind of was percolated, should we hit the pause button or be prepared to revisit this? And it's similar. In Maryland, you see that the Senate president has articulated perhaps up to $1.5 billion in spending cuts might be necessary. Revenue projections of close to $300 million have been cut from the revenue projections. In Virginia, there are 2 special committees established, one by the Speaker in the House and also in the Senate of Virginia. They are coming to, that committee will meet in Northern Virginia and I believe in Arlington in early April to hear from Northern Virginia, and also they'll have invites out to the district in Maryland to participate. And then in the district, we will talk more about the district and budget situation that is of immediate concern. But the CFO, Glenn Lee, has said it's about $1 billion over the next 3 years that would need to be reduced from the budget in DC. We can go to the website that we're debuting. So kind of this is shifting to what we're doing, and we need to have a talk as a board, because this is certainly not a one-time discussion. I'm going to go through this site in a moment, but we are getting these numbers out to as many groups as we can and just having a level-headed discussion of the number of individuals impacted. We've talked a lot to the press about unemployment. I think you all will remember from COVID, you apply for unemployment insurance based on There's not a need for you, or list me 5 things you did last week, and if you don't respond, it provides cause. And it is not clear, the administration has not been clear that they will pay unemployment insurance to those affected. There's also a cap of unemployment. It's different in different states. So some individuals just don't apply for unemployment. But if you'll remember back to COVID, it took several months for the data to really start showing the story of what's happening. So we're out in the press as much as we are, just sharing these numbers, working with our partners who are modeling out some of these cuts. Happy to come and brief your councils. I've heard from a couple members to ask and share this information. We have it by locality, we have it by census tract, we have it by congressional district. On April 10th, you all have all been invited. It will be the first ever Capitol Caucus, and that is a gathering at the Gaylord in Maryland from 4 to 6. That will be a gathering of the delegates and senators from the Maryland General Assembly, the Virginia General Assembly, and the DC Council. It will be the first time that group has gathered as a group. Members have met, whether it's through NCSL or different committees they might serve on, but as a group, that group has never come together and met before. So this will be largely a getting to know you, but we'll also share some of this data then. And we hope that this can be a reoccurring meeting of this group with the COG board to discuss issues of importance to the region. We would anticipate when we discuss today another meeting, special meeting of the COG board, probably virtual, either later this month or early next month, to talk about what we need to be doing as a region. To that end, working with partners at the Greater Washington Partnership, the Board of Trade, and the Consortium of Colleges, we will have a Potomac conference. We had one last year on public safety. Yep. This year will be on this topic. Good. It will be in May, most likely in May, and it will be a 3-part all-day conference. One will be level setting just the facts of the universe that we've talked about today that's affected. 2, what resources are available right now for workers who are displaced, from job placement opportunities to mental health to housing resources. And then 3, a discussion of pivoting and continuing to diversify the economy. What should we be betting on as a region given our workforce? So let's go ahead and drill down a little bit here on this page. But this is a compilation of, and this is not, raise your hand and flag if we have missed something. I'm sure that we have, but and we will add to this daily. This is a compilation from the local and state levels of websites and resources that you have provided and the states have provided for workers. We continue to scroll down a bit. We'll have a running list of job fairs and town halls that members are doing, CODELs are doing. Again, this is something we're going to have to stay on top of and update daily. If we have missed something, please flag it. A frequently asked questions section, which goes over some of the things that I talked about where you apply for unemployment, what the ceilings are in terms of qualifying and that sort of thing. And then let's scroll down to data and research. So that kind of explains the crux of what we've been talking about here. How many workers and where they live is different than showing jobs at the place of work. And that data set, again, is too often what folks pull from, and it does not tell the whole story of what's going on in this region. That's a little bit of a level set. Always read the asterisks with any of the reports that talk about the number of workers impacted. There's always some really important caveats that folks should be aware of. Continue to scroll down, please. So this breaks down just what we were talking about before. Let's keep scrolling. Now these maps, and Tim and his team and Conti, their GIS folks did a great job, and Greg, who's here, in pulling this together. You can scroll over. Why don't you show scrolling over? On the left is the number of workers, where they live, and on the right is where the jobs are physically located. So you'll see the district is bright red because it's got a concentration of the jobs physically headquartered, right? And Tim, if you go, just kind of just show some examples there. This has been sent out to you, to the press, to the public, so definitely get on it and drill into your respective district, and it will tell a more complete story. Tim has shown there that you can download the zip file for federal workers and jobs to use these maps. It'll break it out by county and jurisdiction there. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Let's keep going. Again, that shows the federal workers. This gets down to the census tract. You can sort it by county, congressional district, and census tract on this map. And we have this for the COG region. We also have it for the entire state of Maryland and the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. And it's not going to be a surprise to anybody that there's a concentric circle around the district in terms of the number of federal workers. And that links, the district's already captured above on this page, but those, you can keep, yeah. If you click on either one there, it gets you to the statewide information for Maryland and Virginia. Which we're pulling up now. Tim, are we going to the state? Okay. Okay. So that shows all the data for the entire state of both Maryland and Virginia, which is obviously pretty helpful. I will flag, we've worked with a lot of good partners on this data, the Urban Institute, Weldon Cooper Center, the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. And like I said, we've been sitting down, we briefed the Washington Post, I would say 15 reporters the other day, and this won't be a surprise to anyone, but the folks that report on the Maryland are different than Virginia, are different than the district, are different than the federal workforce, and where they're pulling numbers from is not necessarily consistent. So just trying to level set with folks and walk them through the census information, which is the most complete. This was an expectation here that we would have a discussion though, so this hopefully prompts a discussion from the members. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Chair Luss. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Clark, I'll say I appreciate what you've put together here, the data and the information, but I'll say clearly on the resources. Our county, our jurisdictions, our region are definitely impacted by what's happening at the federal government level. And the part that makes me pause is it's not just the federal workforce. I think you alluded to the contractors and all that tails from it. So we really won't know the true impacts of this for quite some time, but if we can't prevent it, we can probably sit here and say, we know there are going to be some adverse impacts. So I appreciate that there's a focus on the individuals who have been displaced through no fault of their own. I mean, the federal workers didn't ask for this. They summarily removed from their jobs. And I think what we're trying to do here is to help them find employment and get re-engaged in a way that they can stay in our region. Because I think there are other impacts that I don't even want to get into, as it's going to relate to impacts to property values and others over time as well. So I appreciate the work that's been done here and recognize that this will be helpful to those who are being impacted. So with that, let me open it up. I know that Chair Stewart had asked me previously to be recognized, so I'll go ahead and start with her, and then I'll get my colleagues, and then I'll get to you, Mr. Mickelson, after that.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair Lusk. I do want to say thank you, Mr. Mercer and the whole team at COG for putting this together. As Chair Lusk said, we are looking here at the federal jobs, but the impact of what is happening right now from the federal level cuts across everything we do here at COG. It's not just the federal workers, it's looking at the real estate in this area. We have talked before about, what the government, federal government, their real estate in this region and what impact that's going to have. Transportation on WMATA and having the federal workforce go back, the economic impact, food insecurity. We just saw $1 billion cut come out yesterday out of the White House. Health policy, as we're looking at potential cuts to Medicaid and other programs. Unhoused, which is something that this body has taken up as a region, we know is going to be critical. So I was very glad that this item came up after we talked about our response to January 29th, because I think listening to the chiefs, particularly Chief Donnelly, when he said, we were prepared to face January 29th because we know as a region how to face crisis because we work together and we plan. And just as this body helped the region get through COVID, I think this is a time that we can come together and look at how we can all work together. And I'm glad to hear that there is already in the works with staff and the executive committee to hold another meeting before our next one next month to plan, because I think time is really of the essence for many of our residents. One of the things I would like to ask is, who do you want us to contact if we want to clarify information on the website? Because I think a number of us probably around the room here are doing many things with our federal partners to make sure our residents are supported.
Sure. You send it to me and I'll get it to the whole team. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Stewart. Chair Mendelson.
Thank you. So I wanted to say a little bit more about the impact on the district. So Clark touched on this when you said that our revenue estimates were revised downward about $340 million average for the next 3 years. Our chief financial officer has described the worst of the impact, and these revenue estimates were before the notice about the buildings, selling off buildings. Now I forget what I was going to say on the $340 million, the negative, it'll come back to me. Oh, yeah, that he characterized it as essentially being a recessionary impact on the district. And if we look at the region, I'm not quite sure what that impact would be. As a result of just that turmoil, Moody's, we have a AAA rating with Moody's, and Moody's has announced last week on Friday that they were going to reevaluate our credit rating solely based on these federal government actions, nothing to do with the district, its management, or its resources. Now, most of you know this, that right now, this continuing resolution going through Congress has an adverse effect on the district, and not everybody may understand what's going on. The district has always been able to spend at its current budget levels. We have a budget that's funded by local revenues, and but Congress thinks that they appropriate our budget. And I know that sounds a little strange the way I put that. And every year Congress does appropriate. And when they do the continuing resolutions, this has been for a decade, they have language that says we can spend at the current year level. That's 2025 right now. We can spend at that level because we've already adopted our budget. But within this continuing resolution, they dropped that language, which has the effect that we will, assuming the continuing resolution passes this week, that means over the weekend, we suddenly have to go back to FY 2024 spending. And for the year, we will have to spend $1 billion less. So we have half a year left. I think you all can appreciate this. We have a half a year left to come up with $1 billion in reductions. It's roughly 9% of our budget that would be the reduction. I'm not clear on this. Some of you know this, that we have a contribution that we make to WMATA, and I believe Maryland or Virginia tie their contribution to whether the other jurisdictions are paying what the increase is. We budgeted for the increase for FY 25, but we would have to go back to 24. So it's not clear to me whether that would then now trigger a reduction from Maryland and Virginia. So at least I'm guessing about 200 million from the district, and that could be what, 600 million from the region would be taken out of WMATA. I'm not sure, I can't quantify that because I just don't know the details, but that is, so not only is the district potentially affected recessionary, that not only are you going to see with the district, if we can't figure out a workaround, that the district's going to inevitably have to furlough police and fire and everything else. So that would affect, I think would have an effect on the region. But our contribution to WMATA could have a cascading effect, which would hurt all of us. So that's the picture.
Wow. That's a little somber, mister. Okay.
And Chair, there's an article in your packet on what is happening today with the district and a proposed statement that the chair will read at the end of the discussion that we'd like to put out on behalf of COG on this specific issue.
Okay. And then Supervisor Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hard to follow that. I wish I had something uplifting. Just a thought and reaction that I have in hearing, and obviously we all have to adapt and prepare, and COG is an important venue for that. I fear that there's a certain, and I'm not saying here at this dais, but there's a sense of fatalism in the region that's creeping in, as if these cuts and the continuation of these cuts are inevitable. And we're all preparing for that. And as we adapt and prepare for that possibility, I think it's really important that we continue to fight. Because one thing about this president is he does respond to pressure. And when he touches a hot stove and burns his hand, he pulls it back. He might put his hand back on the stove later, but he pulls it back. I don't know that we as a body are in a position to pressure the administration, but there are folks in our region who are. One is the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, who could be doing a lot more to speak out on behalf of Virginia in our region. And all of those different pressure points we've already seen within the administration, the conflicts emerging in the cabinet, pushback on DOGE from within the cabinet, successful lawsuits on behalf of federal employees and federal unions. And I think regionally, we have to figure out how to be part of that fight. One thing that we could consider as a board perhaps would be a letter to Governor Moore, Mayor Bowser, and Governor Youngkin, asking them to go together to the White House and express their concern about the impacts on our region, the impact on the federal government's ability to accomplish its missions. I think that would be very powerful. I know that Governor Moore and Mayor Bowser have been outspoken, but for the three of them all to go together would send a very strong signal. That's perhaps something that we consider. But I just urge us, as we prudently, as we always do, prepare and dig into the details, we also have to find ways to be part of that fight, because that fight is going on, and it's not a fight that can't necessarily be won over the course of the next 4 years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other comments? Yes. Mr. Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're engaged here in Job 1. Job 1 is getting the data, supporting our citizens, and making the case for the region. But I would submit that Job 2, because there are people in our political system who will cheer the negative implications for our region. So I think beyond Job 1, which is where we're focused now, how we first understand the impacts and how we as local government officials respond to those impacts and maintain, to the extent that we humanly can, the services that our citizens expect and deserve. Job 2 is explaining to the rest of the country what the impacts on them are as a result of these, I will call, inhumane policies being pursued inhumanely. And fundamentally, it's making the case that when NOAA lays off people, that affects the entire country. When FAA lays off people, that affects airline safety for the entire country. So as we focus on Job 1, I hope we can also put this in the context of this is something that is not just affecting our region, but is affecting the entire country in terms of the reduction and deterioration of fundamental government services that everyone in this country relies upon. So that's what I would urge, but we need to focus where we need to as local government officials, but hopefully we'll put it in a larger context beyond just the impacts, the negative impacts to this region. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you. And then I recognize Chair Randall, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not unusual that Mr. Snyder and I completely agree. And so he said so much of what I would have said. So I would just want to associate myself with all of your comments, Mayor Snyder. It is important that the country knows that when the guy in Utah doesn't get his Social Security check, it's because what just happened with in DC with DOGE, and it wasn't just a just an oversight. And I don't think, it might be that, speaking to Mr. Walkinshaw's point, it might be that it just takes a little more time for the country to truly feel the pain that is happening to us as it seeps out into to the rest of the country. So any ways that can happen, I agree with that. Chairman Mendelson, listen, I am, we cannot speak about regionalism and support regionalism as we just did without coming to the standing to on the side of our partners in District of Columbia. We just can't. There is not a time you all would stand with us, to be quite honest. And so what, you know, I spoke to your mayor last night, in fact, and I will take your lead if that is a letter, as Mr. Mercer has already indicated, if that is, whatever that might be, for us to be supportive of the district and to help, maybe help people understand that the District of Columbia is not a federal department, which which I'm not sure everyone completely understands. The District of Columbia is not a federal department. And so, and what impacts the District of Columbia impacts the region, and what impacts the region impacts the country. But this kind of, for lack of a better word, bullying of the District of Columbia is wholly unacceptable. And we have all watched it and we have all seen it. And I need you all to know that we are standing with you, and please communicate with us often, besides the letters in the package today, to let us know how we can stand right beside you all every single moment.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. I was trying to, thank you. I was trying to make the point that there are ways that the district's affected, that the region is consequently affected as well. If public safety gets worse in the district, that does affect the region. And for sure, WMATA is our regional system. DC Water gets some money. I do not know whether that's affected by this. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Karatonis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I only to add, yes, DC water is affected. The water that I drink every day and my family. $51 million. This is about, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 9% of the operating cost for DC water. I just wanted Chair Randall beat to me. These are two different things. What's happening right now to DC is basically taking away the ability of the district to actually respond to the onslaught that is happening on the federal government, to its own residents, and some of them are our residents as well, who work in the district. And so the cascading effect is that eventually our ability to respond to that will be weakened as well. And that's and the timeline of that is what gives me the most concern, because this is not a reasonably moving event. This is an extremely fast moving event. And I heard some colleagues, we had conversations here in the hallways about, oh, is that not like the pandemic? Are we going to find the toolbox that we left? So there are two things that are not there. Number one, there is no money to expect from anybody else.
Right.
Number two, there is no end in sight. That means, we don't know that will be a vaccine against that or at some point. So we are in for a far longer pain than we have experienced until now. And this, to me, the only thing that I want to add to Mr. Walkinshaw's list of tasks and to Mr. Snyder's list of tasks is we have to really mobilize our congressional delegations and our state delegations to really pressure the governor. I mean, in the case of Virginia, the governor's office should be receiving many calls every day from Northern Virginia and from other places in the state. And the same for the governor in Maryland. I know that they have a better ear for that, and I know that Mayor Bowser is really employing herself, positively here. But I see that we need to pull all levers to act extremely fast. So I would be very much in support of a letter, in the next 24 hours, if possible.
Okay, Supervisor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is what we do, right? This is exactly what we do from a regional perspective. And I think the example this morning, I told Clark, I mean, he's a classy guy. Everybody knows Clark's a classy guy, but he's a visionary as well. And he knows, he has his pulse on what we need. Yeah, I'll keep going, I know. But he has his hands on the pulse. But we as COG, we always hunker down and we do our regional thing, no matter what the needs are for our respective jurisdictions. The question that I had is really remedial, but Mr. Mendelson, you know, like Phyllis said, without saying, let the mayor know we're here for y'all. That's it. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, and it is remedial, but if it impacts the data that we saw up here, I saw on one of the slides, and it may not be anything, but just so it doesn't impact the data for us regionally, it had West Virginia on it from the Urban Lands Institute. And that may be something you come back with later, Clark, I don't know, but I saw it up there and I was just expecting, just from an eye's view, Maryland, Virginia, and DC.
Yep. So that is the MSA for kind of the DC metro area. They kind of count that little sliver of West Virginia, and you can look at it just by state or locality as well. So those numbers that I referenced about just the numbers in Virginia, Maryland, DC does not include West Virginia.
Okay, so it doesn't matter is what you're saying. We can go to our own, it won't impact what we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it matters in the sense that there's a lot of folks from West Virginia who have a job headquartered in DC.
Okay,
So when Department of Education shuts down, that's going to affect folks in West Virginia.
okay.
They're going to apply for their unemployment in DC though. And part of this, you know, speaking at the committee a few weekends ago, one of the rural delegates, one of your peers, Delegate Sickle, said, you know, they enjoyed the fact that so many folks moved out of the DMV during COVID and lived in rural Maryland or lived in rural Virginia, but worked a full-time federal job. And I said, that's great. There's two things we need to keep in mind. If you live in the Shenandoah Valley but work for USAID and get fired, you apply for unemployment in DC. One, two, this return to office mandate 5 days a week or you lose your job. We don't know how to Mr. Walkinshaw's point, how this will all shake out, if there will be some balance in the future that allows these folks to continue to live in rural Maryland or Virginia and work for the feds. As it stands right now, they'll lose their jobs if they can't show up 5 days a week in person. So there's lots of context to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Maldonado, followed by Mayor Jordan.
Thank you. And Ms. Bailey, I saw Clark eat crabs, so I don't know if he's always a dignified person. That's not so. But on the letter, which I think is being handed out now, I just wanted to make sure that we're addressing it to at least the four of the statement. A letter to the 4 U.S. senators from Maryland and Virginia to make it clear, like requesting them not to vote for the CR unless and until a clean CR that does not disrupt the ability of the District of Columbia to continue to function. Because I'm worried, you know, this is the one chance that our senators that have an opportunity to hold it up saying, we want these changes before we vote for it.
Okay, so just so I'm processing now, I had someone whispering in my ear at the same time you were talking, but I think there's two separate things. We've got the statement that you just got handed to you, but you're asking for a letter, I think is what I heard. So we have to draft a second document that would address the point that you just said, if I heard you correctly.
And I'm sure the statement could easily, using artificial intelligence based in Loudoun County, we could easily change this into a letter. So,
well, all right, let me hold that thought for a second. There were a couple of others that had their hands up. So President Mitchell, I think I had you next.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say everyone's comments, I truly embrace them all, but I'm going to pivot to a different type of a request or ask. The information that we're receiving is great because we can share it with our staff, with my colleagues, but I would like to see if there's some kind of information you can share my colleagues who are not sitting at this table, because many of them need to know what's going on and be able to articulate that to their residents so that we can create a bigger swath of being informed and helping them to be educated, to help educate their residents about what's happening. So if we can do something, maybe 1 or 2 page, because I think that's going to be beneficial to as many people that you can get the information to, it would truly help to create more voices with the same message.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, Mayor Gaskins.
Oh, I think he was first in that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. I should say that. Mayor Jordan.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that I want to thank the COG staff for this information that they've pulled together, quantifying some of the numbers. You know, in Greenbelt, we're a small jurisdiction, but you know, our residents have been pulling together, working together to pull resources. Our Congressman Glenn Ivey held a resource gathering in Greenbelt 2 weeks ago. About 1,000 people there. So many people have received notices about what has happened. Many more are on pins and needles, not knowing what is going to happen next. So I want to compliment the COG staff on the numbers on unemployment, but I'm wondering, please keep working. If there's some way you can begin to quantify some of the impacts on contractors. Greenbelt, we're the home of NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. NOAA is right next to us. The Agricultural Research Center is right behind us. So the office space that we have in Greenbelt is often filled with federal contractors. And as we're about to formulate and consider our local budget, we really need to have the best numbers that are available. So thank you for the work, COG staff, that you are doing, but please continue to try and dig a bit deeper.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Jordan. And then Mayor Gaskins.
Thank you, Chair Less. I just had 3 quick points. First, a thank you to COG, and just wanted to share, we are one of the jurisdictions that we've invited Clark, and we've also invited the Northern Virginia Regional Commission to come to one of our council meetings. So they're coming in March to share the data. Part of why we did that is when the manager presented his budget, he talked a lot about the uncertainty and the crisis we're facing. And while I think people understand that at a high level, they're not hearing all of what this means in terms of the ripple effects. And so we wanted to find a way to use our upcoming meetings as an educational opportunity as well. So I'm happy to share after that presentation occurs, happy to share that with the group. The second thing I wanted to share is I am supportive of both a statement and a letter. I do think, to Mr. Malinato's point, I think if it is going to go to the senators in Virginia and Maryland, I think finding some way to work in and building off this piece of we are one region and here's what this means for these 2 other states as well, I think would be a great way to strengthen it as a letter. And then the third, I don't know what this looks like, but I think as we get deeper into this year and even into future years, all of us are going to be making some really difficult cuts. And I think figuring out how we share the areas where that's happening is really important, because if I don't know, 4 of our jurisdictions are cutting resources related to the unhoused populations and homelessness services. That is a trigger that is going to have implications for that very issue in one of our other jurisdictions. If folks are making cuts in food assistance or childcare, I think we just need to be sharing that, not from the place of like, we control what anyone else is going to do, but from the place of people can't get resources in one place, they're going to be looking in other places. And so just how do we find ways to kind of share what that's looking like, the data we're using to make those decisions, and the difficult trade-offs that we are weighing across those issues.
Okay. Thank you for those excellent points. Yes, Ms. Fitzwater.
I want to just echo what has already been said, and I'm also supportive of the statement and a letter. And I think what I heard Rich say is supporting the letter to the mayor and the 2 governors, but including the senators, or sending a slightly different version to the senators that includes that very specific request of them that they not support anything that doesn't reinstate the language that has been cut out of the House's version of the continuing resolution. So I'm in support of all of that. I also just wanted to thank COG for this data. I think it's extremely helpful, and the fact that it is available to the public for our nonprofit partners and other community agencies and all of the folks that are working together on these issues right now, trying to collaborate. It's extremely helpful. Just one, I guess, other ask or suggestion perhaps, and I think there are probably other organizations working on this as well in the various jurisdictions. But I think what is really impactful is the storytelling about what is actually happening to individual families, when these just draconian layoffs are happening. And so looking at this and seeing the numbers is one thing, but actually having the stories attached to it really makes a bigger impact. And I think that's where it's really starting to maybe sink in a little bit more with some folks, because it isn't what they have pictured in terms of government waste when they actually hear the stories of who is being fired and the experience that they have and the impact on their family and their community when these things are happening. So in any way that COG could be involved in helping to gather those stories and even videos or other things, I think that is really how we start to hit home on the impacts of this.
Okay, so I'm
Thank you,
good.
Chair.
No, thank you. I'm going to note now that we need a little time check. We have an executive session which has 2 items that we need to handle. So what I would maybe propose here is if we could maybe have someone make a motion to the effect of both the letter and the release.
Just quickly.
Okay.
I just really.
Stuart, quickly, very quickly,
Just
please.
really quickly, I support everything everyone says.
Yes.
I would just say, looking at the statement, it says if enacted. I think the statement needs to, and our letter needs to reflect that that we're feeling the pain now.
Yes.
That the actions that have been taken since this White House took office, we've been feeling it as a region. And this is, and I wouldn't use these words, but this is just more insult to injury. Like, that this is even being considered right now and passed out of the House. So that, thank you. I think we need to make sure that that is stated.
Okay, so if you're okay, we can. Okay.
Let's going to work on the language.
Chair Randall.
I was going to say, could the language say, because the federal spending bill currently makes its way through Congress, does have an enormous and immediate negative impact on, so just make it, just change that verbiage. Is that what you, something like that?
Remove enacted?
Okay, just get rid of if enacted.
If enacted.
Then you have to change the word would actually.
Okay, maybe we can work with the staff to try to, how about this? Because that's what I'm worried about. We'll spend the next 15 minutes
wordsmithing,
in this
okay.
document, which not to say it's not important, but we've got some other things we need to do. So if you're okay with this, we'll have the staff continue to work on both the release and the letter that we'll be sending, and we can share that with members of COG. How's that?
Yep. So we're going to work on this release, letter to the 4 U.S. senators, letter to Governors Youngkin, Moore, and Mayor Bowser. We will set up an additional COG meeting specifically on this virtual, either later this month or early next month, and any agenda items. A number of good topics were brought up, and we have partners that can come in and report out on. For example, Capital Area Food Bank is modeling food insecurity for federal workers that make under 70,000 and what that's going to add to that population. So there's lots of groups we're working with. If you want information on a topic, just flag it. We can add it to the agenda or get the right group to be responsive. And we will work, Mayor Mitchell, kind of on a breakdown for each locality. Here are your numbers and here are the issues, other issues that we're looking at.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay. And I'm just making sure everyone else is okay with that, just as a group. Consensus of the group. Perfect. Thank you guys very much. Okay, let me move quickly to item number 9. Again, we need to do an executive closed session meeting. So for this item, we will have to enter the closed executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter and a matter related to the building. This is a closed session. Everyone other than COG board members and selected COG staff are required to leave the room and virtual platform. Executive sessions are closed to the public, and the YouTube live stream of the meeting will be turned off now. If you are not a COG board member, please gather your belongings, so not to be mean, and leave the room now, please. As others exit, I will make a motion to go into executive session. I move that we move into executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any abstentions or nays? Hearing none, that motion passes. So once we get the door closed, we can